Welcome to our session, The Triangle of Innovation. Here today with the startup Haddy, the technology foundation Siemens, and the visionary end user Disney. My name is Sebastian Wolf, and I'm very pleased to host the session today. As you know, we're in the middle of one of the biggest transformations that industry and probably the world has seen. It affects every one of us. It touches every aspect of our lives. And industry disruptors are at the heartbeat, or are the heartbeat that is driving this transformation. To provide home to the best industry disruptors, Siemens continues to build a strong and vital industrial ecosystem. But as you all know, we cannot do this by ourselves. So therefore, we need the commitment of our customers, of our partners, and the sellers. Today, we will talk about an extraordinary use case, an example how a dream turned into a vision and finally into reality. I'm very happy to welcome our guests who started with their individual dreams, then joined forces and leveraged the power of the ecosystem to succeed. Jay, let's start with you. So you are the founder and the CEO of Haddy. Just give me a little bit of an idea what Haddy is all about. And then I heard an interesting story about your first meeting with Marcus. Maybe you can share some insights there as well.
Well, I think that for us, Haddy is a 3D printing world builder. And we started in the furniture industry because we knew that they were simple things to make. But we print things that are sort of the size of a shoebox up to things that are as big as a train car. And we print primarily in polymer composites of many different varieties. And now we're growing to print more and more things, from boats to lighting systems to decorative things. And we're going to talk about our strongest customer engagement now today. And that's with the Disney Corporation. And so that's Haddy in a nutshell.
Okay.
And then let's see. The first time I met Marcus, remind me when that was?
I think it was on Formnext a couple of years back, right?
I think that might have been, or maybe we met in a different era, in a different time portal, because I think Marcus and I were destined to know each other across space and time. So I think that for us, we have been 3D printing for my team for a long time. And we started 3D printing cars in my previous company. And then at Formnext, which has been a lot of the world meeting associated with 3D printing machines and technologies, was, I think, the first time that we came together.
Absolutely, yes. I remember that one.
Yeah.
It really sounds like a fun moment, at least from what I hear in this very short summary. Marcus, so you're the manager for additive manufacturing business development at Siemens. Quite lengthy title, I would say. What do you remember from your meeting with Jay?
Yeah, as I said, it was on Formnext. Formnext is one of the world's leading 3D printing trade shows. And I remember Jay coming to our booth and asking a few questions about 3D printing, and then it got more specific about large format additive manufacturing, which is an area of my expertise, I would say. And then what followed that was that we had a very lengthy discussion, got into very deep technical topics. I got to know what Jay is about to do, and was very exciting, obviously. And yeah, what turned out is that Jay is collaborating with a company called Seed. They are also kind of slowly growing up startup based in the Netherlands, and they were also a customer of mine. So we had this connection there. So Jay was collaborating with Seed, Siemens is collaborating with Seed. So there was already different parties coming together here. So kind of like a small ecosystem forming, so to say. Yeah.
Okay, talking about the ecosystem, because this is what I really liked. And when I spoke to you yesterday about Jay, you got really excited about this collaboration, which I really liked. So ecosystem, Linda, I look at you. You're the Senior Vice President for the Siemens Accelerator Marketplace and the ecosystem. So this must really be music in your ears, I guess.
Yeah, and as you are talking about motions and music, yeah, actually this is really music to my ears, hearing about the small ecosystem which is coming together. So at Siemens Accelerator, we always said we want to bring companies together, yeah, and everybody should have an equal share of success in there, which is the partner, which is the customer, and which is us as Siemens. We are working with those companies in motions, in the build motion, in the service motion, and in the sell motion. When we talk about the build motion, this is actually where Haddy comes into play. So Haddy helps us also in the additive manufacturing to shape our products even more, because you are the experts here. So we need you to shape our software and our hardware in order to make it competitive in the additive manufacturing space. So this is helpful for us. For you, I think it's helpful that we help you increasing reach and going global.
So this already sounds really exciting. And now I'm getting really excited because I'm really happy to introduce Nick. And Nick has an interesting title too, and we discussed this a little earlier. So Nick is the Executive Imagineer in the R&D Technology and Engineering Department at Siemens, at Disney.
Yes.
Of course, Disney. So I'm especially excited because Disney has always been a company to my heart since I was a child, because it always let me dream. Yeah, and what I really liked about Disney too, it was always a company that also made dreams come true. I visited the park in Paris, for instance, and I really loved it. Yeah, so it is something that really touches me, and I like having Nick here on this discussion with us today. Nick, tell me, what are the applications that you're currently working on, and what has Haddy to do with it?
Yeah, absolutely. And to be clear, Disney formed my dreams too. And it's a very fortunate role to be a part of making the magic. We are working with Haddy on quite a few things today. Over the past year or so, we've actually started to experiment with using large format 3D printing in our parks in a few ways that have actually ended up in front of guests. One is props for a stage activation. We actually made a prop Lorcana staff from the Lorcana card game. And we also actually made a prop for the Jungle Cruise. So a boat, not the boat the guests ride in, but a boat that the boats actually go by. And it's a beautiful prop. It actually replaced one that sank in the last year or so, and it had been there in about 40 years of service-ish. And we were able to replace it very quickly and bring the show back to its original life in a really beautiful way. But we don't want to stop there. There's a lot of ways in which we can work with Haddy to build durable, beautiful props that end up in front of our guests to achieve our #1 goal of getting as much show and as many props in front of our guests as possible, to have all of that layered detail. And this is another really important tool in our toolkit to do that as we build future lands and parks.
Okay. So I like the introduction a lot. This gave me already some good context here. Let's get a little bit into the details about the collaboration, I would say. First question to you, Nick. Disney Imagineering has the highest standards in the world. This is what I was told. What was the specific reputation that you heard about Haddy, that made you reach out to them?
Yeah. So it started with, I knew at the time that I met Jay that Haddy was considered to be the foremost large format 3D printing company in the world. They were building unique large format objects. They were safe, they were durable, and they were being delivered on time and effectively. But to your point, nothing is enough. We want everything for our guests and more. So the real special sauce about Haddy is that they were flexible. They were willing to learn and work alongside us. As a part of research and development, our job in Imagineering is to actually push the limits of what we can do and make things more and more realistic, more and more true to the story world. And Haddy is actually willing to work alongside us to test new things that have never been printed, new shapes that have never been printed, new durability that needs to be in our parks for 50 to 100 years at a time, and in front of guests every day in a safe, beautiful way. And Haddy actually had the attitude and the know-how to get into it with us and actually explore those applications. And that's what we really love about working with Haddy and with Jay specifically.
So what you just described sounds to me a little bit like hard problems, if I may say. So Jay, when I look at you again, when you were first challenged by Disney about these hard problems, how did your team's background, what you mentioned earlier in the car industry, help you to put on your engineering hat again and meet their safety and simulation requirements?
So I do think you said at the beginning, Sebastian, that everything starts with a dream. And the dream for me was that you could make amazing things happen in a digital framework where you could take a digital design, you didn't have a human in the loop, that you didn't have paper instructions that were taken out, and you really wanted to be able to take that all the way through. So that was the dream. And we had been doing it in a really difficult segment, my co-founder and I, in the vehicle world, but not everything was digitized. So the dream for us was to find a place where we could build things that could be end-to-end digitized. So in a sense, we reached to change the object so that we could achieve this dream. And we started making furniture, as Nick kind of said when we met. We were making large format things for a really big for a really big retailer, and it had to look beautiful. They were very exacting, but it didn't necessarily have to be safe for people to sit on because most people weren't, or jump on, or other things like that. So we wanted to take it to the next level, and we were attracted by working with Disney because of their demands to want to do that. Our corporate value of innovation, which is one of our 6 corporate values, is really about taking hard problems and finding innovative solutions to do it. Even though we're using the same equipment almost every day to do it, we're always finding innovative ways of applying it. So that really attracted us to working with a customer like Disney. And I also would want to add that I think maybe you had made the statement, or maybe you had made the statement that that we are an expert in something. I actually think that it is true of everyone in this chain that everyone is an expert enough to know to ask a question about what they want, and then all of us are willing and humble enough to listen to what the other one knows in order to be able to get there. And I love that, and I love that about working with Siemens. I love that about working with Disney, is that there is a common desire to get it right and a respect for, like, oh, I don't know the answer to that. How am I going to figure it out? And I think our team feels that way every day we show up to work.
That's exactly right. And to kind of tack onto that a little, one of the things that's been great about working with Haddy, as you know, Disney, is that Jay has a deep respect for our artists. And so we are able to work together to develop the core object, say the infrastructure or the shape of the object. But then when it's time to have that human artist touch that is most appreciated, Haddy's willing to step aside and let those artists step in and actually critique what has been done, make those edits, and then make those finishing touches themselves. So we still have that human flair that's augmented by the power of what Haddy's doing.
All right, cool. Coming back to these hard problems, Marcus, real quick, over to you. I guess with these hard problems, challenging questions come along, right? And so what made you start working with Haddy and working with Jay and answering these challenging questions? And how do we generally approach working with startups like Haddy?
So I think what I really like, I wouldn't call them problems, I would rather say those were challenges. And I think we at Siemens, as all of us here, like to tackle challenges. I think we had some very good answers to those questions. Sometimes we still needed to figure things out, but I think from the conversation I had at Formnext with Jay, I really had the feeling that there are answers in our portfolio how we could address this issue or this challenge and the other one to make those things work. So, and to the second part of your questions, how do we generally work with startups? I would say there is we have a program called Siemens for Startups, which works on several pillars. And Haddy basically is a perfect example for one of those pillars, where we help the startups to get access to our portfolio equipment in a very low barrier and help them use that technology, get access to it, and then we can grow together with those startups. And another thing that I think works very well with Haddy is to jointly spread the word, to have a kind of joint marketing approach where we not only do fantastic things, but also talk about it and give the startups the visibility that the platform of Siemens, and Siemens benefits then in a way that we say we have perfect example how to apply our portfolio in a very innovative way. Yeah.
Portfolio is an interesting aspect I would like to cover with you for another moment, Marcus. So you have called Siemens technology the nerve system of the Haddy factory. How does using Siemens solution allow Haddy to iterate and document parts so Disney can use them near their customers?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for everyone who hasn't seen such a factory yet, you have to imagine it's kind of a warehouse full of industrial robots. So you have robots, they are sitting on a rail, and those robots need to be controlled. So all those robots are wired up. They have a cabinet, which is kind of the brain, and that cabinet is fully driven by Siemens automation equipment. So the Siemens cinematic motion controller controls the motion of the robot in a very precise way. But not only that, you also have an entire digital software thread which allows the engineers at Haddy to design the objects, but then also to slice them and to define the toolpath which the robots need to follow. So all that ends up in an end-to-end digital workflow, so to say, and that is what the Haddy is leveraging here. And I think that's maybe an aspect Jay can elaborate on as well, but the microfactory concept allows Haddy to be very close to the consumption market, to their customers, to bring the objects there, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. So what I really like about this conversation already is I hear Jay is doing that, Nick is doing that, Marcus is doing that. So there's a lot of individual power, but when it all comes together, I think we even allow a superpower to evolve, right? And this brings me back to this ecosystem topic. Linda, Siemens is a super massive corporation, right? And when I always hear about Siemens Accelerator, the ecosystem that has evolved around that, I always question myself, how do we act as an enabler for small-sized companies like Haddy, at least at this point in time, to move fast, right? And how can we help them scale systematically for customers like Disney?
Yeah. How you say it, it feels a bit like we are working at Dinosauria. So, but yes, I think we also learn a bit in this corporate environment that we need to be open, like you said, Jay. We need to accept that we cannot do everything by our own, that we need to collaborate with other companies in order to help our customers to digitally transform and scale and be successful. And this is what we've learned by heart since a couple of years now already. And we also know that we cannot just rely on companies like AWS, but that we also want to work with startups which are helping us to be, again, like a startup ourselves, that we are working more agile and more flexible with you. So, and the most important fact in being a partner of choice for us and being within this ecosystem is that you are bringing something to the table that is super valuable for the customer. Yeah, it is about the goal which we want to achieve together. So we don't want to throw solutions over the fence to the customers which doesn't add any value. So this is the first critical moment that we have people in the company like Marcus who believe strongly in the solutions of Haddy. That we want to work with you. So, and then we have this, like you said, Siemens for Startup program, where we are lowering the barriers, having a discount concept on how you get to our products, that you can scale globally with that. I think super important for Haddy, as we said. And then it's important that we are working along a digital thread together. So that we build a story together and see on what kind of components we bring to the table and what kind of components does the startup bring to the table, that we all together go to the companies of these worlds and how we help them. And I think this is the key to success, that we work with startups like with all other companies. We've always worked since decades together, that we take you seriously on an eye level and want to really work with you and want to create together success. And this is how we do it also with other companies out there, also small and mid-sized companies and larger scale companies, along a digital thread, common use cases in an industry that we all play together and position towards the customer. So this is actually how we do it. It's pretty simple.
That's the way how we do it. Yeah. Sounds like a strategic pillar for Siemens, right?
It absolutely is.
How can other startups benefit from that? So how are you building this ecosystem so everyone can participate and leverage from it?
Yeah, actually, like we said, so for startups, it's the easiest thing to apply for the Siemens for Startups program. So this is the first entry point, and then we have people working with you hand in hand to figure out on what is your value proposition. On the other hand, we bringing you to the right people within the company, because sometimes we got the feedback from partners that, yeah, I'm working with Siemens since many, many years, but it doesn't scale. So, yeah, of course, if you had someone working in a small town in Germany with you all along the last years, yeah, maybe it's tough then to scale with us, yeah? And this is why we structured this very much, having one entry point for those startups, so that we're coordinating this common journey. So this is what we are doing here. And once we are saying, yeah, this is enough in this program, we establish a strong foundation now in this collaboration. Then we go in different motions. Like I said in the beginning, we have the build motions where we are working out on what common portfolio do we have and what common value proposition do we have. And then we go over into the go-to-market motions, yeah, like the service and the sell motion, that we are having common marketing concepts, common go-to-market concepts, having our salespeople also selling portfolio elements of our other companies. So this is how we could do it for almost every startup, which brings value to the customer.
Great. I'm always impressed, honestly, by what an ecosystem can do to those people who contribute and leverage from it. So this really excites me. Jay, the next one is for you, because I assume, right, there is plenty of other challenges, and maybe one of those being the financials, right?
Yeah.
So is there anything that you can share how you dealt with it when you set up your startup, and how is the ecosystem basically helping you to kind of perform what you want to achieve?
I think it's a great question. I mean, we play in this game of business, and it really is a game. It's like it's a chess game. You have all of these different inputs, and the output that you're measured by is usually, the outputs that you're measured by are employee retention and profit and stakeholder engagement and growth and other things like that. And these are a fairly common set of metrics, but the inputs are really complex. And so you'll excuse for a second, one of the inputs is my earpiece. And so but the inputs are really complex because the biggest complexity is customer change. And customers constantly are asking for new things. It's, in fact, the various shows like CES are where they learn new things and then they ask for them. And so when we think about it, like the person that's not in this discussion is all the park goers, all the guests that go and take in the Disney magic. And so like we're all here like kind of like upstream, midstream, close stream, and then downstream is like what the child at Disney is experiencing wonder, as you did and you did originally when you came in. And so I think that for us, really getting into that and understanding how to pay for it so that it can keep going is there. And in the end, the person who's paying for it is that child's parents usually. And so they're paying Disney, and then Disney's paying us, and we're paying you. And that's often how the transaction goes. And then and when you think about that, that's the revenue dollar. But to get started, what I think many people, especially in the world of software, like there's a famous statement that Mark Andreessen said, which is software is eating the world. Once it finished the dessert, then it had to eat the meal. And the meal is actually making hardware and doing it with software. And that's much more expensive because it actually has equipment that has a capital expenditure, and it has equipment that has, service and maintenance and all these things. And so to pay for that is not done with revenue dollars right out of the box. It's also not done with equity dollars right out of the box because those are very either delayed or expensive forms of capital. So bridging that gap is about getting seller financing, and it's about getting, loans and other things like that. And Haddy spent probably, and my co-founders, we probably spent a large part of our founding journey, maybe 10 years, figuring out how to do that. And you mentioned a little bit that we were working together with a company called Seed. One of the things in Seed was, as a startup, just a little bit further along, was selling to universities, and they were putting together hardware that was research and development and a little bit more into the commercial realm, and making it more possible. We chose them because you could actually get a blue book value on the robots that they were using, meaning you could finance them.
Yep.
Because they were used in the automotive welding world. And so, I mean, for some people who don't think about financing a company, these are boring topics, but they're absolutely one of the more critical topics to launch a business. So we chose to focus as close as possible in the furniture world at the beginning on customers that would pay for something. And in that case, we sold to a retailer who paid for things that they then delivered. But we also chose machine partners who were capable of delivering those things in a way where we could finance them. And those have been some of the decisions that we've made along the way in order to be able to get deployed and get financed, because it's not the world of software where you can do it in a venture capital dollar way, or ship software before it's ready.
Yeah. Maybe, Jay, I can comment on this one, because that's really I'm in the additive manufacturing world for quite a while now, and what I experience a lot is additive manufacturing, depending a little bit on the technology modality, but typically those are parts that are not produced in seconds or in minutes. Those are parts that print overnight or print a couple of days or at least half a day or something. So you have equipment that comes with a certain cost at one side, and then you have processes to produce a part which takes some time. So in the end, the machine hourly costs are directly added to the cost of those parts. So it's quite crucial to make sure that the machine is delivering the output is a high quality output, that you can predict what the machine is producing, that it's producing little waste but a lot of parts that are ready to use. So therefore, I think having this digital thread that I mentioned earlier is also quite crucial to make sure that it's not a trial and error, but rather it's like you use your equipment in a financially sustainable way. Yeah? I think that's absolutely crucial, and that's not only true for this large format additive manufacturing. That's basically true for all the additive manufacturing industry, I would say.
I think in this, Nick, you should speak about like your worries, if you will, for us on our side about like, well, we want to do work with you, but what if we don't need to use you all the time? You know, we talked about peaks and valleys and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
if you want to comment
exactly
on
right. We've thought a lot about this because, listen, building a theme park, you do a lot of development in a short period of time. Sometimes you take a break for a couple of years. Now, as a global company, we are continuously building parks all over the world, but not all in the same place. And so we've had to work very tightly with Jay to understand his supply chain and his demand chain so that we can actually slot in the work that we need to do with him. And in those valleys where there is less work where we are delivering in front of the guests, we'll fill it out with some research and development work or with some of his other customers, because there is that fixed capacity. And that takes a lot of work to actually pull that together in a way where we are being a good partner to Jay. But at the moment that we need to build an entire fabricated land in a couple of years flat, he's ready to help us when we need it.
Yeah, that flexible manufacturing footprint is so critical, and it gets back to the financing piece, because when it's time to build, like literally when Disney gives us an order today, we've worked on like 10 contracts or something already, and when we get an order, it's like, oh, it's go time. Mm-hmm. And then when it's not, we need to know that, or better yet, when it does well enough, like we're putting in a boat at Jungle Cruise and now we want to do more things in a park that's distant from where we are, if there's enough of a demand signal from your customers and then from you, then we can build a new facility and we can start selling to other customers in the region, but then we have to finance it. And then we have to make sure that we have the robots available in time and give that demand signal to those providers so that it's possible to get it up in time.
And then let me bring a final moment again, the ecosystem into the play.
Please. Yeah.
Because it's maybe not just you who might have financing issues then if you go global and need to do this for your customers like Disney. But we have Siemens Financial Services who can help out here and has also a broad ecosystem of finance players who can help here. Yeah. So I think this is again where the ecosystem kicks in, which you sometimes might forget that we can also do finance stuff. For you as well.
And so you know and the thing I love about Siemens Financial Services is you know the value of the asset. You know that the actual digital manufacturing and software supply chain is valuable to us and then therefore valuable to our customers and their customers beyond. So it makes it possible for you to value the loan, value the price of the financing, which is really essential.
Yeah.
So I guess we could talk for another hour or so, and it's always great to hear that there are so many possibilities in our ecosystem to help innovation and collaboration evolve. I just want to take a quick glimpse into the future, if you allow me, Nick. So this collaboration has always been called the marriage of innovation. Yeah, I'm quite interested now when we look at the next 5 years. Where will this take us? Yeah, where will 3D printing ecosystems evolve to? And what is Disney doing out of this, yeah, to create better customer experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. So Disney has, openly talked about a very aggressive menu of things that we're building over the next 5 to 10 years. And each thing is intended to be better than the last. And so we have this partnership with Haddy that we're trying to solidify as much as possible because of the aforementioned ability for Jay and team to think flexibly and to meet our standards so that we can improve every single time we deliver something over the next 5 years. So what do we want to do next? We want to get things a little bit closer to the guests. We want to build that trust. We want them to be more durable. We want them to be more realistic. And we want to find more use cases. Because the more use cases where we can use Jay and team, the more stuff we get in front of the guests every single time. And so they're a critical piece for us to continue to try to improve that delivery ecosystem and that guest experience every step of the way.
So when you talk about durable, yeah, that rings a bell, right? Durability sounds a little bit like sustainability to me, right? So you want things out there. We want to be sustainable companies.
That's right.
So Jay, this goes to you and Nick real quick. We're a company where we have sustainability at our hearts, right? We really want to drive this as an important topic. So how does these, assets, products that you use really translate into sustainability?
I'll be very fast because I know we're close to the end of our time. And so really, for us, it's people, planet, and profit. And so we want to make sure that we're taking care of the planet, but we've got to create an ecosystem that is these young people coming into AI, that they see a future for them to have a job. And then lastly, that we can build it in a way which is sustainable microfactory by microfactory, customer by customer, so that we're actually making a profit on something so we can be around for the next innovation.
Love that. And we are equally focused on sustainability and have a lot of great efforts that we already do as a company. But it's really great to work with another company where the materials are recyclable and every new thing that we make is even more sustainable than the last.
I'm really happy to hear that. And I was really happy to have you as participants in this really nice conversation. I enjoyed it a lot. We're at the end of the time, unfortunately. Thank you very much, Linda, Marcus, Nick, and Jay.
Thank you.
And thank you to the audience, and have a great day.